Have you ever been so heartbroken that even your bones felt the pain? Have you ever looked at someone and thought they were your future, only for them to shatter you into pieces without blinking? His name was Iranzi. Tall, quiet, unimportant. That was how most people described him. But the pain he carried? Oh, that was louder than a scream in a silent room. It started with a wedding. But not just any wedding, the wedding of the woman he once loved. The woman who once promised him forever. Her name, Limani. She was fire and thunder. The kind of woman who entered a room and turned heads without trying. And Iranzi. He was the shadow behind her light. He gave her everything. His time, his dreams, his loyalty. But in the end, what did she do? She left him for a man with polished shoes, a shiny car, and a heavy wallet. And the worst part? She invited Iranzi to the wedding. Yes. She wanted him to witness her say, "I do," to the man who took his place. Pause. Would you go? Would you sit there and clap for your own heartbreak? Now listen carefully. This was the moment everything changed for Iranzi. This wasn't just rejection. This was rebirth. Before we dive deeper, hit that subscribe button. This story, it's about to hit differently. Back to Iranzi. He didn't want to go. He swore he wouldn't. But something inside him, maybe pain, maybe pride, dragged him there. He walked into that decorated hall wearing a second-hand shirt, his shoes dusty, and his heart pounding like war drums. People turned. They laughed. They whispered. Is that not the one she left? Why is he here? Shameless. Iranzi kept his head low. Until Limani walked in. Oh, the gown. The glow. The audacity. She didn't even look at him. Not once. That was the final stab. But here's where the story takes a strange turn. In that same hall, someone else was watching him. A woman. Dressed in simplicity. Sitting alone. Observing. Why was she staring at Iranzi? Who was she? And why did she look intrigued? Don't go anywhere. Because this woman? She's not just anybody. She's the storm that rewrote his story. But before I tell you who she was and what she did next, subscribe now and turn on that notification bell, so you don't miss how a rejected man became the husband of a billionaire queen. Iranzi stood up to leave before the reception even began. He couldn't breathe in that room. He stepped outside, into the cold wind. And then, she followed him. The woman. Why are you leaving? She asked, her voice like soft thunder. He blinked, confused. Do I know you? No, she said. But I know what heartbreak looks like. She didn't smile. She didn't flirt. She just stood beside him. And in that silence, something strange happened. Iranzi didn't feel invisible anymore. But who was she? Why did she care? And what did she see in a man that others had called useless? Hold on. The answers are coming. Have you ever met someone who felt like a question you needed to answer? Iranzi didn't know her name. She had no makeup, no jewelry, no entourage. Yet, she stood in silence with the grace of royalty. Why did she care? Why was she talking to him, of all people? I saw you in there, she said softly, eyes locked on his. You don't belong among them. He frowned. And you do. Her lips curved, not in a smile, but something deeper. No. I was just passing through. Like you. Just passing through. But then she pulled something out of her purse. An old photo. Tattered at the edges. It was a picture of her. But younger. Standing beside a man. Smiling. That was my brother, she whispered. He loved someone who left him for money. He drank poison 2 weeks before their wedding. Iranzi's stomach twisted. What? She nodded. Pain recognizes pain. Chills ran down his spine. This wasn't just a coincidence. This woman didn't appear out of nowhere. She was sent. But by who? Wait. You're not ready for this next twist. Before I reveal what she told him next, make sure you subscribe. You'll want to see where this storm is heading. Now back to the fire. She turned to leave, but then paused. My name is Irelia, she said, finally. If you ever want to talk, find me. Then she vanished. No contact. No address. No goodbye. And Iranzi. He was left standing there, his heart punching through his ribs. Was she real? Was this a setup? Or was it fate? Days passed. Then weeks. He tried to forget her, but he couldn't. The night haunted him. Her eyes. That photo. Her story. It was too close to his own. Then one night, soaked by rain, he saw her again. Not on the street. Not in a cafe. On a giant billboard. Smiling. Elegant. Powerfully beautiful. CEO of Xerox Global. Irelia. Forbes' top 10 most influential billionaire women. What? Iranzi almost choked. That woman. A billionaire. Why did she hide it? Why didn't she tell him? Now the questions boiled in his blood. Why would a woman worth billions stop to talk to a man like him? Was it pity? Or something deeper? You're thinking it too, aren't you? Was this a test? Was Iranzi being chosen, or played? He couldn't sleep. He couldn't eat. The rejection from Limani didn't hurt anymore. Now, it was curiosity that tormented him. So he did something wild. Something crazy. He bought a second-hand suit, borrowed a pair of shoes, and walked into Xerox Global's headquarters. He asked to see her. Security laughed. But just when they were about to throw him out, a voice echoed through the hallway. Let him in. It was her. Standing at the top of the glass staircase. Like a goddess from the pages of a book he never thought he'd read. She hadn't forgotten him. She was waiting. But for what? And why? And most importantly, what does she want from a man who had nothing? The game is just beginning. You're not ready for what happens next. Subscribe now, because the next chapter will make you question everything you thought you knew about love, destiny, and hidden revenge. This isn't just from rejection to riches. This is from pain to power. And Iranzi's story? It's about to set your emotions on fire. Have you ever tasted something so good it made you question everything you've ever eaten in your entire life? Iranzi had never sat at a table like this before. Polished goldware. Sparkling water in crystal glasses. A room that smelled of wealth and roses. Irelia didn't say much. She just watched him eat. Plate after plate of food he couldn't pronounce. Flavors he'd never imagined. Grilled dove in honey sauce. Coconut milk stew served in bronze bowls. Roasted lamb drizzled with something that made his tongue tingle. Eat, she said softly. Don't ask questions yet. But isn't that the question haunting us right now? Why him? What did this woman, this goddess in heels, want with a man whose shoes still had holes in the soles? If you're still asking, pause right here and hit that subscribe button. Because what happens next will bruise your logic and bless your heart. After the meal, she rose without warning. Come with me, she said. He followed her up a silver elevator with no buttons. Just motion sensors. It opened into a space that felt like heaven had an office branch. White marble floors. A chandelier that dripped like frozen lightning. And in the middle, a desk with no paper, no clutter, only a glowing glass screen with her name floating across it like magic. Irelia Z. Ngaler, Supreme Chair. She sat. I have a meeting, she said, barely looking at him. But you'll come again. Iranzi tried to speak. She raised a hand. Tomorrow. Same time. Same place. Don't be late. He nodded, stunned. Then she turned away, picked up her phone, and began to talk business in languages he couldn't understand. It was over. He turned to leave, still tasting the meal on his tongue, still feeling like he was floating in a dream that didn't belong to him. But as he reached the glass doors of the lobby, the dream shattered. 2 security guards blocked his path. Guy, one of them said, grinning wide. You know one share? Share what? Iranzi blinked. The package now. Wetin she give you? Oya drop our own make you day go. She didn't give me anything, he said truthfully. Wrong answer. They grabbed his shirt, pushed him back. One slapped the back of his head. You day mad. You wan use our Oga do mega? No be your type dem day dash millions. I said she didn't. The slap that followed almost knocked his spirit out of his body. And then, a voice cut through the chaos. Sharp. Royal. Enough. They froze. She was back. Irelia stood at the top of the stairs. No anger on her face. Just something unreadable. Cold. Calculated. Without a word, she reached into her purse and pulled out a fat bundle of crispy new Naira notes. The kind you smell before you even touch. She tossed it at the guards like trash. Split it. Fight over it. Sleep with it for all I care. But touch him again, and I'll replace you with robots. They stammered apologies, fumbling to catch the cash. Iranzi stood there, wide-eyed, humiliated, confused. He stepped forward. Ma, when will I? But she raised her hand again, silenced him, then turned around, and walked away. No explanation. No date. No time. No location. Just like the first time. She left him, wondering who she really was. Why she picked him. What game she was playing. And whether he was a pawn, or a king waiting to be crowned. But what if I told you, this was still just the beginning? Have you ever thought your life couldn't get more confusing, only for the universe to prove you so wrong? Iranzi was beginning to feel like he was finally crawling out of the shadows. He had gotten a small job at a local warehouse. Nothing fancy, but honest. He'd started bathing regularly, shaving his beard, and sometimes, he even caught himself smiling in the mirror. Because somewhere deep in the folds of his heart, he was waiting for Irelia. Or at least, waiting to understand her. But on a rainy Thursday evening, as he walked home beneath a dull sky, something unnatural happened. A black SUV. Tires screeched. Doors flew open. 3 masked men jumped him. Before he could scream, they threw a sack over his head, tied his hands, gagged his mouth. No explanations. No voices. Just silence and speed. His heart pounded like tribal drums inside his chest. Was this a hit? A mistake? A ransom attempt? He didn't know. He didn't understand. And then, they arrived. He was dumped. Yes, dumped like a bag of dirty laundry, onto a marble floor that felt far too expensive for any criminal lair. The sack came off. And there she was. Irelia. Standing in a silk robe, barefoot, with her arms folded and her eyes burning with a flame that said she knew exactly what was going on, but didn't care to explain it just yet. He looked around. A sprawling mansion. Walls taller than trees. Chandeliers like melting stars. Every corner screamed royalty and isolation. But he didn't care. He was done being confused. He stood up, chest rising and falling, fists clenched. You think this is a joke? She didn't flinch. I'm not some child you can drag around like a puppet, Irelia. Who the hell do you think you are? You invite me, you vanish. You feed me, then disappear. You throw me into heaven one moment and abandon me like I'm trash the next. And now this. You send your dogs to kidnap me. Still, she didn't blink. Didn't even look offended. Instead, she turned, walked to a velvet couch, sat down like a queen. Then she looked him straight in the eye. Tell me how Limani broke your heart. Just like that. No apology. No explanation for the kidnapping. No, are you okay? Just a calm, bone-deep command. Iranzi froze. What? Tell me, she repeated. How she broke you. His throat tightened. His fists slowly unraveled. Something in her voice, calm, dangerous, disarming, unlocked a door in him that had been sealed shut. He looked at her, this strange, powerful woman who appeared and disappeared like a ghost, who had made him eat like royalty, cry from humiliation, and now, kidnapped him only to listen to his pain. She didn't just fascinate him anymore. She frightened him. And yet, he couldn't walk away. He took a deep breath, cleared his throat, and for the first time in years, he prepared to open the floodgates. But not yet. Iranzi sat still for a moment, as if his bones were afraid to relive what his heart could never forget. Irelia remained silent, her gaze soft but unreadable. She did not interrupt, not even with her breath. The air in the mansion felt still, too still, like the world itself was holding its breath for what he was about to say. Then, slowly, Iranzi began. You want to know how Limani broke me? Fine. I'll tell you. He looked down, voice trembling. We were together for 4 years. Not dating, no. Not officially. But bonded. Like skin and shadow. Everyone knew. The neighbors, the market women, even the children. If you saw Limani, I wasn't far behind. If you saw me, you could bet she was coming. He smiled. Painfully. We planned our future every night under a mango tree in front of her house. She'd say, when you make it, I'll be your queen. And we'll travel to Zanzibar. I didn't even know where that was, but it sounded like a promise. And I built my whole life around that voice. Around her. A beat passed. He exhaled slowly. I saved everything. Every naira. Every coin. I skipped meals. I walked miles. Just to buy her things that mattered. A necklace with her name. A diary where I wrote poems for her. My plan was simple. I'd surprise her at her next birthday with a ring. His hands trembled now. 3 days before her birthday, she told me she was traveling for a short retreat. She needed time to think about her life and God. I believed her. His eyes darkened. But on that very day, she wore white lace, golden heels, and tied her geli like a queen going to war. He looked up, dead into Irelia's eyes. She was getting married. And I was invited. Irelia didn't move. She didn't have to. They said it was a friend of the groom, who had added my name to the guest list. I didn't even know the groom. They said, come for food, come celebrate love. What they didn't say was, the love being celebrated was mine being buried alive. His breath hitched, but still no tears. Not yet. I arrived late. I didn't recognize the venue. It was too luxurious, too unreal. But when I saw her, when I saw Limani in that white gown, I froze. I thought it was a joke. A prank. He scoffed bitterly. Until the MC shouted her name and the crowd erupted in joy. I wanted to leave. I tried. But my legs, traitors, they walked me forward instead. I stood there, in the back row, behind the canopies, watching the woman I starved for, cried for, prayed for, walk down the aisle to another man. His voice dropped lower, thick like mud. And then I saw you. His eyes narrowed now, not with anger, but confusion. Irelia. You were sitting front row. Your skin glowed like silver. You clapped when they kissed. You even smiled when Limani called her husband her only true friend in this world. You didn't know me then. But I saw you, clapping for my funeral. Finally, his lips quivered. His voice shook. But still, he didn't cry. Because this wasn't the kind of pain that needed tears. This was the kind that builds walls. I walked away that day. Not just from the wedding. From life. From hope. I left everything at that altar. Even my name. A silence followed. The kind that wraps around the spine and presses against the chest. I was never the same again. And honestly, I don't think I want to be. He leaned back in the chair like he had just poured out poison from his soul. And yet, he wasn't done. Iranzi leaned forward, hands clasped, voice barely above a whisper. It wasn't just a story anymore. It was a wound bleeding before Irelia's silent eyes. Still, she didn't interrupt. She didn't even blink. She simply watched, as though she were watching a man dig his own soul out from under a collapsed building. I left the wedding before they cut the cake, Iranzi said, his voice hoarse. No one noticed. No one cared. I wasn't part of the celebration. I was just a ghost that happened to walk through it. He paused, as if listening to echoes in his mind. I didn't go home. I couldn't. I walked for hours, barefoot, because my slippers had snapped somewhere in the dust. I remember passing faces, lights, laughter, but none of it touched me. It was like I didn't exist anymore. His fingers tightened around each other. That night, I found myself under the same mango tree where we used to sit. It was the only place I felt real. The diary I'd written for her was still in my bag. I took it out and tore every page. Slowly, until the wind carried all my words away. Then I lay there, hoping I wouldn't wake up the next day. He swallowed, hard. But I did. Not because I wanted to. Because someone found me. He looked into the distance now, eyes glazed. She came out of nowhere. A woman in a long black cloak. I didn't see her face, just the glint of moonlight bouncing off her ring. She knelt beside me like she'd known me all her life and said, "You weren't supposed to see that wedding." His eyebrows drew together, still confused. I asked her who she was. She didn't answer. She just stood up and said, "You were not meant to die for someone else's story. Yours hasn't even started yet." Then, she walked away. Disappeared into the night. A single tear finally escaped the corner of his eye. I thought I imagined her. But when I woke up, there was a white scarf folded beside me, embroidered with the letter I. I kept it. It's the only thing I kept. He looked down at his hands. I started losing weight. I stopped eating, talking, sleeping. Friends left. My family stopped asking. Everyone said I was cursed. Mad. Even I believed it. I was living, but I wasn't alive. Then his voice shifted, like a fog lifting slightly. Until I saw you again, Irelia. At the restaurant. That day you asked if I remembered you. I didn't. But there was something about you. Something familiar. Something that smelled like closure. His eyes flicked up, searching hers. Maybe it was the way you carried yourself. Maybe the way you fed me, like I mattered. Maybe it was how you humiliated me afterward, just like she did, but then turned around and protected me. I don't know. But every time I see you, I feel like I'm standing at the edge of something too big for me to understand. A long silence. I don't know who you are, Irelia. I don't know why you're doing this. But I do know one thing. He leaned closer, voice now sharp with truth. You are dangerous. Not because you want to harm me, but because every time I look at you, I start hoping again. His words hung in the air like incense. He leaned back, folded his arms, and said no more. The silence that followed Iranzi's confession was the kind that could burn skin. Irelia still hadn't moved. Her expression remained unreadable, like a goddess carved from sorrow. But then, slowly, she exhaled. A shaky breath that sounded like the soft moan of a caged animal finally freed. She stood from her chair, heels clicking against the marble like thunder against calm seas, and walked to the window. Her back still to Iranzi, she spoke, low, deep, and raw. Do you think you're the only one who's been betrayed? Iranzi sat still. Irelia's fingers trembled slightly as they reached for the curtain. But she didn't draw it. She was staring beyond it, into memories only she could see. You talked about Limani like she's a knife that cut you. She turned her head halfway, only her profile visible now. But to me, she was the flame that burned down my soul. She turned fully now, eyes glossy but unflinching. I had a man. His name was Loaritas. I found him in the gutter of life, Iranzi. And I don't mean that as a figure of speech. He was homeless when I met him, strung out, smelling of fear and hunger. Her voice cracked. I gave him food, clothes, a house, a purpose. I put my name on the line for him. Gave him a role in my company, a reason to wake up each day. She started pacing slowly. And I loved him. Oh God, I loved him. Not like a woman loves a man. No, I loved him like a mother loves her only child. Like a priest loves his calling. I fought wars with my own family just to have peace with him. Her hands balled into fists. But all the while he was using me. My money. My name. My reputation. For what? She stopped walking. Her lips curled into a bitter smile. To build a paradise for another woman. A lump rose in Iranzi's throat. Every time he said he was attending a business meeting, he was with her. Every time he said he needed money to settle vendors, he was settling her. Every necklace, every bracelet, every expensive dress, I bought them. And she wore them. Her voice dropped. Her name. Limani. Iranzi jolted. Yes, Irelia said, slowly walking toward him. You're Limani. Iranzi's mouth parted, but no words came. I hired a private investigator the moment I noticed the holes. I found out everything. Every detail. Every hotel receipt. Every lunch bill. Every lie. And then one morning. She sat on the edge of the table, eyes fixed on him. I got an anonymous invitation. A wedding. No sender. No message. Just a name, a date, and a venue. Her voice deepened. When I saw it was Loaritas marrying Limani, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I watched. Because by then, my heart had stopped expecting loyalty. She placed her hand on her chest. I arranged for you to get an invitation. I told my investigator to find out everything about you. I watched the footage of you breaking down by that mango tree. A tear finally escaped her eye. Not because I wanted revenge. No. I needed to know if I was alone in this pain. I needed to know if someone else in this godforsaken world loved like me. Foolishly, deeply, and painfully. She stood and walked closer. And when I saw you, Iranzi, I knew. I knew you could hurt yourself the same way I would. For people who drink from our well and leave us dry. Her voice cracked again. So I followed you, fed you, mocked you, protected you, pushed you, not to play games, but to see how deep your wounds ran, to feel if your soul still bled like mine. She was inches from him now, looking down at the man who was no longer just a stranger. Because you and I, we are not healed, we are not whole, but we are made of the same broken glass. She turned away then, walking back to the window. I'm sorry I brought you into this. But maybe I was just trying to find my reflection in another shattered mirror. And just like that, she stopped speaking. But her silence spoke louder than thunder. Iranzi sat, thunderstruck, his chest heaving softly, his eyes fixed on Irelia as though the veil of the entire universe had just fallen from her face. But she wasn't done. She turned slowly to face him again, her usually perfect poise trembling with the weight of something far more powerful than elegance. Truth. Her voice came again, soft, thick with unshed tears. But every word struck him like music soaked in lightning. Iranzi, she whispered. That wedding day, I started following you. She stepped closer, barefoot now, the silence between them dense with unspeakable emotion. Why? Her voice cracked. Because the more of you I saw, the quicker my heart healed. She knelt beside him, her palms resting gently on his knees like a prayer offered without words. I couldn't let you out of my sight. I watched you, not to spy, but to understand. And the more I saw, the more I ached for you. I began to pity you. Yes. But it was more than pity, Iranzi. Her voice trembled, then steadied with fierce sincerity. That empathy. It turned to fire. It began to flame something dangerous in my heart. Something I thought I had buried forever. Love. Iranzi's breath caught. But still he said nothing. I saw you, she continued. That night. I saw you tearing the diary you wrote for her, Limani, and you know what that meant to me. She reached into her gown pocket and pulled out something. His eyes widened. It was the same customized white handkerchief, still folded neatly, the embroidered eye still gleaming in silver thread. That act, tearing that diary, it told me that a vacuum had just been created in your heart. She smiled painfully. And I made up my mind that night, right under that mango tree, to be the next tenant in your heart. Or even buy it, she chuckled through her tears, if money can buy love again. She gently pressed the handkerchief into his palm. I didn't give you this to wipe your tears. I gave it to you so you wouldn't forget me. Ever. I refused to tell you my name, my address, my worth. Because I needed you to look for me. Her eyes locked with his. Because if you didn't, I would know you were never mine. And I would move on. She stood now, tall, radiant even in her heartbreak. But you looked. You searched. You came into my territory, trespassed into my world without a map, guided only by ache. She took a long breath. And that day you walked into my orbit, I vowed, you will never leave again. Tears streamed freely down her face now. I nourished you because that's what I will forever do. Not just feed your stomach, Iranzi, but to feed the hunger in your soul. So you'll never thirst for love again. Not ever. Her voice dropped lower, intimate. I kidnapped you because someone kidnapped your love before. And if another woman, kidnapped you too, then that's what justice demands. Fair, isn't it? She took a trembling step forward. Iranzi, I know you love me. I can feel it. But I will not beg for your confession. I would rather give you time, to say it from your own mouth, from your own heart. When you're ready. She moved even closer, now standing directly in front of him. Let me occupy the space that Limani created for me. That empty space she left like a tomb in your chest. Let me fill it with life, with laughter, with eternity. And suddenly, the weight of it all broke her. Irelia collapsed to her knees, weeping uncontrollably, like a dam finally surrendered to the flood. Her sobs echoed through the marble mansion like thunder over water. In that raw, painful sound, Iranzi heard years of betrayal, of rejection, of longing pressed into every tear. The guards outside, hearing the shattering cries, rushed in. And what they saw stunned them. Their strong, regal madam, the untouchable goddess of wealth and fire, was curled in the arms of a man they'd mocked just days ago. Iranzi held her now. Not as a savior. Not as a sympathizer. But as a man who, for the first time in years, had finally found someone crying the same tears he did. There are moments that don't belong to time. Moments that rise above the noise of the world and sit among the stars. This was one of them. Iranzi stared at Irelia, her head buried in his chest, her sobs softening into whispers, her strength dripping into his arms like melted gold. For the first time in forever, he felt whole. Not because the past had vanished, but because someone saw it, carried it, and stayed. And something cracked open in him. Something that had never known wings began to flutter. The guards stood frozen at the doorway. They weren't guards now. They were witnesses to something sacred. They weren't ignorant of her past. They had seen their boss, the woman who ruled empires, crumble behind glass walls, alone. But today, she was no longer alone. Iranzi's voice came. Quiet. Velvet. Eternal. Irelia. She looked up slowly, tears still trailing down her cheeks, lips quivering as if expecting rejection. But Iranzi smiled. And then he began to speak. Not with words only, but with soul. You poured wine into a cracked vessel. And called it beautiful, even as it leaked. You found me in my fragments. And named each one precious. Even the ones that bled. He took her hand gently, raising it to his lips. I have been buried in the silence of forgotten men. But you dug through the ruins. Not for treasure, but for me. You gave me food. But more than that, you fed the hunger that I myself feared to name. Her eyes widened as he continued, his voice now trembling with passion. I have loved before, blindly, stupidly, fully, and I was emptied. But you did not come to refill me. You came to remind me that I am not a container. I am a river. I flow. I rise. I rage. And now I love. He drew a long breath and kissed her forehead. If my heart was a broken house, then you are the moonlight seeping through the cracks, showing me that light still visits the haunted. Tears rolled freely down Irelia's face again, but this time, they were joyful. I don't want to be whole again, Iranzi said. Not if it means forgetting the scars that led me to you. Let me love you, not like a man who was abandoned, but like a man who has arrived. Not like a beggar before a queen, but like a king who finally found his equal. He gently touched her chin and lifted her gaze to meet his. Let me build a palace with your name carved in every stone. Let me be the poem that your soul reads when it forgets its worth. Let me be the calm after every storm that tried to drown you. Then, he leaned in closer, their foreheads touching, their breaths mingling. Irelia. If I was born just to lose Limani, then I bless the pain, because it led me to you. And if this is love, raw, broken, beautiful, then let the world burn around us. I have found my heaven. In your arms. Silence fell. Not a hollow silence, but the sacred kind that follows a miracle. The guard stepped back quietly, heads bowed, not out of obligation, but reverence. And in that towering mansion built on gold and marble, two broken souls finally touched eternity. Not in noise or fireworks, but in the soft, thunderous union of understanding. It was as though the stars had conspired with fate to script that moment. Two broken hearts melting into one under the twilight of redemption. But just as ecstasy was about to make a permanent home in Iranzi's chest, reality struck like thunder. His heart, once heavy with sorrow, was now fluttering with something dangerously close to hope. And that scared him. Iranzi slowly pulled away from Irelia's arms, like a man waking up from a sweet, intoxicating dream. His voice trembled, his eyes lowered, and his hands fidgeted nervously at his sides. Irelia. He stopped, swallowed hard, then tried again. Irelia, I love you. I do. With every breath I have left in me. But I can't. This shouldn't happen. She blinked, confused, her smile beginning to fade. He stepped back. You're a galaxy. I'm dust. You shine with royalty. I crawl in survival. Look at this place. He gestured around the sprawling marble mansion. And then look at me. I don't have anything. Not a proper roof to sleep under, not a car, not even a bed of my own. What can I possibly offer you? He clenched his jaw, voice cracking under the weight of truth. I'm just a man who lost everything. And I'm afraid that if I stay here, if I keep loving you, I'll only wake up one day and realize I was never worthy. I'd rather walk away now than shatter again later. A long pause followed. The guards, still rooted like statues at the door, exchanged silent glances. No one dared speak. Even the chandeliers above seemed to dim with tension. But Irelia, she didn't frown. She didn't cry. Instead, she smiled. Majestically, with the grace of an empress and the certainty of a woman who knew exactly what she wanted, she turned, picked up her handbag from the glass table beside them, and without a word, opened it. From within, she slowly drew out a bunch of shimmering golden keys, their tags etched in diamonds, their weight heavy with purpose. And without hesitation, she extended them toward Iranzi. The entire room went still. The guards widened their eyes in shock, one even gasping audibly. But she ignored them. She looked straight into Iranzi's eyes and said in a calm, regal voice, "This mansion now belongs to you. From this moment on, it is your home. You are no longer a guest in my world, Iranzi. You are its king." He stumbled back a step, stunned. What are you saying?" She motioned to the lead guard. "Drive him home. Let him pick only what is essential. Documents, books, his soul's treasures. No clothes. No shoes. No junk." She turned to Iranzi again, eyes soft but blazing. "From today, you become my burden, as much as I have become yours." Then she turned sharply, now firing off a string of instructions to the staff. "Mary, prepare his room. Jason, inform the chef we now have a new dietary schedule. Caleb, make sure security doubles up. This house has a new boss. Introduce yourselves accordingly." The entire house echoed with her commands, but no one questioned her. Instead, there were grins, nods, even quiet claps of celebration. They loved her. And now, they'd love him. As she was about to slip into her own car, she paused, abruptly. She turned around, marched straight to Iranzi, and cupped his face gently. Iran. The new name rolled off her tongue like silk dipped in honey. Then, in one swift motion, she leaned in, bit his ear playfully but deeply, and whispered, "If you betray me, then I die. And if I die, bury me inside your heart." He stared at her, lips trembling, eyes glistening. "No, never again," he whispered. "Never again will I let love slip through these hands." Her smile broke wide, a lightning bolt of joy, and she skipped like a schoolgirl back to her car, waving with flair, her eyes dancing. And then, she was gone. The Cadillac keys were gently handed to Iranzi by the chauffeur. He entered the ownership corner, the back seat with a throne-like presence, and for the first time in his life, rode in silence with guards escorting him like royalty, toward a home he no longer belonged to, just to gather relics of a past life. Because now, everything had changed. The silence in the mansion was golden. Too golden. Iranzi lay on the cloud-like bed, wrapped in the most luxurious duvet he'd ever touched. The ceiling above him shimmered with soft ambient lights that mimicked the stars. A gentle scent, lavender and rosewood, wafted through the air. The room temperature was perfect. The pillows? Divine. The floor? Polished marble that sparkled like diamonds in daylight. Yet, he could not sleep. His eyes stayed open, wide, searching, disbelieving. He kept touching the sheets, brushing his fingers across the bed frame, glancing around at the art-filled walls, the glistening mirror beside the walk-in closet, the giant screen mounted on the wall. He sat up slowly, holding his head. "Is this real?" He whispered to himself like a man recovering from a coma. "Am I dead? Is this the heavenly mansion they told us about in Sunday school? That place God promised to those who love Him? Did I wake up and find myself in eternity?" He shook his head in disbelief, rising to his feet and pacing the room. "Oh, Irelia, are you even real? How can someone I met only days ago become the earthquake that cracked open my pain and poured in healing instead of acid? How is it possible that in the blink of a heartbroken eye, I have been carried from gutter to glory, from barefoot to boss, from nobody to her somebody?" He clutched his chest, tears of confusion and gratefulness threatening to spill. "Iranzi," he whispered to himself, "what just happened to you?" Then suddenly, his phone rang. The ringtone jolted him. He looked over at the small old device he had rested on the nightstand. Its cracked screen flickered with a number he was just starting to recognize. Irelia. His heart skipped. He picked it up with both hands. "Hello," he croaked. Her voice flowed through like a bomb, soft, slow, yet electric. "Babe, have you seen your new phone?" He paused, confused. "New phone? No, not at all. Mine is still okay." Suddenly, her voice switched. It became that sharp, commanding executive tone she wore like a crown in her world. "Check under your pillow." He blinked. "What?" "Check under your pillow," she said, each word deliberate, like a CEO giving her final verdict. His hands darted to the pillow. He lifted it, and there it was. A brand new iPhone 15 Pro Max, wrapped in sleek matte black packaging, sitting silently as though waiting for him to believe in magic. His mouth fell open. Before he could scream, his phone rang again. "Still Irelia. Give me a call after you unwrap my love," she said with a tender chuckle. "We need to talk." She paused. "Remove your SIM and keep that old phone safe, for pneumonia." Iranzi laughed involuntarily. "Pneumonia?" "Yes," she giggled. "That's what I named your phone." "Oh, I'm sorry, for Limani, or whatever you call her. I'm jealous. She might need to sell it someday to bail out her new husband." The line went dead. Iranzi stared at the iPhone like it was a gold bar. He unwrapped it, hands shaking, screen lighting up like a sunrise. It was beautiful, smooth, powerful, and it was his. He inserted his SIM into the new phone, watching as it sprang to life. A welcome screen greeted him. The wallpaper? A candid photo of Irelia smiling mischievously beside a note. For the one who dared to cry, and dared to love again. Before he could finish reading it, his old phone rang. He stared at it. Unknown number. He picked it up cautiously. Hello. A slow breath came from the other end. Then a familiar voice, drenched in shame, said, Iranzi, please, don't hang up. It's me. Limani. The moment that voice slithered through the speaker, soft, sweet, and slippery like a serpent, Iranzi's finger tapped the red icon immediately. He hung up like the phone had caught fire. His chest tightened. His jaw clenched. That voice. He muttered, almost to himself. That cursed voice. It was Limani. To him, it didn't sound like the woman he once loved. It now sounded like some familiar demon, haunting the corridors of his healing heart. A name came to mind and stuck like a label in his head. Spoiljoy. The phone rang again. He glanced at it with a burning stare. Still Limani. Another call. Another rejection. He tapped decline again and again, and then quickly diverted her number to voicemail. His hands trembled as he dropped the phone on the glossy mahogany table. His heart simmered with boiling indignation. Why now? He said, pacing the length of the room. Why won't she let me breathe? What does she want? A document? An old shoe? Her guilt back? He paused. No, this is not about any item. This is about control. Limani can't stand the thought of me rising. She sees the sun breaking through my clouds and wants to drag me back into her shadow. He looked around the golden room, the scented air, the wealth, the comfort. I've moved on, he whispered. Irelia has planted joy where you sowed pain. So what do you want now? Just then, his new phone rang again. He checked the caller. Irelia. With a sigh of relief, he picked. But her voice. This time, it was not soft or sweet. It was sharp and blazing. Iranzi, she said firmly. Why haven't you called me like I told you? Irelia. I was just about to, Don't lie, she snapped. You think I don't know? You don't have credit, do you? Iranzi chuckled nervously. Well, yes, not really. You should have said so. You think I'll let something as cheap as airtime stop my king from reaching his queen? Her voice softened, like a smile breaking through thunderclouds. Don't worry. I'm sending you sufficient credit now. Not just for today, but for the next lifetime. And enough data to surf the entire internet for eternity, if that's what you want. As she spoke, a ping came in. Airtime credited. 100,000 Nigerian nairas. Data credited. 500 gigabytes. Iranzi's jaw dropped. He laughed, a deep laughter from the pit of a man who knew he was being loved dangerously, unapologetically, and without restraint. Irelia, you're not real. You're magic. She giggled on the other end, then whispered. Use your magic wisely, my love. I've only just begun to show you what love really means. Iranzi sat down, breathless, running his fingers through his hair. From rejection to riches. From pain to paradise. What exactly did I do right, Lord? He looked at his phone again. Limani's missed calls glared at him like old ghosts refusing to die. But this time he smiled. Because he was no longer haunted. He was home. As Iranzi reclined on the luxurious velvet couch, still basking in the euphoria of the unbelievable transformation his life had taken, he found himself smiling into space. Grateful, dazed, unsure if this was a dream he'd soon wake from. The aroma of vanilla and rosewood from the scented candles danced in the air, and the quiet hum of the central air conditioning was like music. Peace was a perfume, and for once in years, he was wearing it. Then his phone rang again. Once. Twice. Thrice. Who again? He muttered, annoyed at the interruption to his bliss. On the fourth ring, he reluctantly reached for it. He stared at the number. It was his younger brother, Ifuru. Something about the call made his heart race. He picked it. No voice. Just a soft sob. Then 3 WhatsApp messages popped in almost instantly. 1 image. 2 texts. The first message. Brother, sorry to disturb you. Mummy is in the hospital. The second. The doctors said she must undergo surgery immediately to survive. The third. But it will cost 5 million naira. Please, help us. We don't know who else to run to. His hands trembled as he opened the image. It was a photo of their mother lying helplessly on a hospital bed, tubes in her nose, her face pale and unfamiliar. A woman once full of strength and stubborn love now looked like a whisper of herself. A small board at the edge of the bed showed the hospital's name. He gasped. His world spun. Mama! His voice cracked like an old radio. He quickly called his brother back. Ifuru answered immediately. Brother, please forgive us for hiding it from you. Mama didn't want you to know. She thought you were still heartbroken because of her, Ifuru said, referring indirectly to Limani. She didn't want to add to your pain. But she's not getting better. What's the full diagnosis? Iranzi asked, standing up and pacing in the room, fingers in his hair. It's fibroid. But there's internal bleeding too. The doctors say she must go under the knife in the next 48 hours or... He couldn't say the rest. Iranzi's knees almost buckled. He leaned against the nearest wall, gripping the phone tightly. How much is the bill again? 5 million, came the whispered answer. 5 million naira. A few months ago, that would have been a mountain too high to climb. But now, he was no longer the man who begged for change on his way to interviews. He was the man with keys to mansions, phones worth fortunes, and a love deeper than oceans. But none of that mattered at that moment. What mattered was the woman who gave him life now needed his help to hold on to hers. Tell Mama I'm coming tomorrow. First thing in the morning. Just stay by her side. I'll handle the bill. Are you sure? Do I sound unsure? Iranzi said, already moving towards the wardrobe for a shirt. Just keep her alive until I get there. After the call, he stood in the center of the room, his heart beating like war drums. Then he looked around the room. Riches, yes. Comfort, yes. But none of it meant anything if he couldn't save the woman who once sold her wrappers to pay his school fees. He picked up his phone and called Irelia and no answer. He sent her a message. Love, I have to go see Mama tomorrow. She's in critical condition. Please understand. I'll explain when I get back. Then he looked again at the picture of his mother and whispered, You gave me life, Mama. Let me return the favor. As Iranzi was still composing himself after the phone call, his phone buzzed again. It was Irelia. Her voice was soft but tinged with concern. Aaron, why is it so urgent that you have to see your mother tomorrow? She asked. Iranzi sighed heavily, dragging his hand across his face. It's serious, my love. Mama is very sick. She's been admitted to the hospital for some time now, and I only got to know tonight. The doctors say she needs surgery urgently to survive. I can't waste time. There was a short silence on the other end, filled only by the tiny crackle of the phone line. Iranzi, she said, her voice steadier now. Please, can I come with you? I want to be there. I want to meet the woman who brought you into this world. Please don't say no. For a moment, Iranzi hesitated. He didn't want to burden her. He didn't want to expose her to the rawness of his world, to the naked pain he knew he would face tomorrow. But in his heart, something whispered, Let her in. All right, he said, his voice low and emotional. You can come with me. Thank you, she whispered, relief washing through her words. I'll be ready. The next morning, they journeyed together. Irelia, dressed in a simple gown that barely hinted at her immense wealth, sat quietly beside him, holding his hand from time to time whenever she noticed his worried glances. When they arrived at the hospital, the air was thick with antiseptic and the tension of suffering. Iranzi led her through the corridors to his mother's ward. There, on a fragile hospital bed, lay the woman who had once been the lioness of their family. Now she looked like a frail whisper of herself, groaning softly in pain, her body weakened by sickness. Iranzi's heart twisted violently in his chest. Irelia, seeing the sight before her, felt tears sting her eyes. She reached out, squeezing Iranzi's hand gently. I'm sorry, she mouthed, her heart breaking for the man beside her. Mama, though very weak, smiled faintly when she saw her son. My son, you came, she whispered, tears slipping down her cheeks. I came, Mama. I'm here now. Iranzi knelt by her side, trying not to cry. He introduced Irelia as a friend, not yet wanting to burden his mother with the full truth. Irelia bent low, greeted Mama respectfully in the traditional way, and whispered, You will be fine, Ma. You will live to enjoy your grandchildren. Mama smiled weakly and blessed her, not knowing fully who she was, but feeling the love that radiated from her. While Iranzi remained close to his mother, talking softly to her, encouraging her, Irelia quietly slipped away. She found the hospital's front desk and requested to see the hospital administrator. Without making any noise or seeking any approval, she paid the full 5 million naira hospital bill, anonymously. When the hospital staff confirmed the payment, she made them promise not to mention her name until much later. Returning to the ward, she watched Iranzi without saying a word, her heart swelling with a strange mix of sadness and pride. Later that day, Iranzi's younger brothers and sisters arrived, along with some of the extended family members. The moment they heard that the hospital bill had been mysteriously settled, they almost collapsed in gratitude. Brother, is it true? Ifuru asked, running into the room, his face glowing with hope. What do you mean? Iranzi asked, confused. The bill. It's been paid. They said someone has cleared everything. Mama's surgery has been scheduled for tomorrow morning. Iranzi's mouth fell open in shock. He looked at Irelia, who was pretending to be busy checking her phone. He instantly knew. Irelia, he breathed, his eyes misting over. But she only smiled mischievously and whispered, Don't look at me. Maybe an angel passed through here. The family, guessing that this beautiful stranger was responsible, couldn't contain their excitement. They quickly began to rejoice on Iranzi's behalf, clapping, shouting, even ululating in excitement. Some hugged Iranzi. Some danced around the hospital corridor. The entire ward was filled with a new and unfamiliar sound, joy. In their hearts, they thanked God for sending this mysterious woman into their brother's life. Little did they know just how much more love, kindness, and beauty Irelia had yet to pour into their broken, waiting world. She's an angel, one of them said. Our brother's star has finally risen, another exclaimed. Unknown to them, this was just the beginning of the miracle that was about to reshape all their lives. Iranzi stood there, overwhelmed, his heart beating with a strange new hope, realizing he was not just lucky, he was blessed beyond imagination. And as he turned to look at Irelia, something deep and ancient stirred inside him. He would rather die 1,000 deaths than ever betray the woman who picked up his broken pieces and called him worthy of love. By the time Mama was wheeled into surgery, and the doctor had assured them she would be fine, Irelia knew it was time to pull back, to allow Iranzi some sacred time with his family. She stood before him outside the hospital ward, her hand in his, her eyes locked onto his soul. Iran, she said softly, brushing her thumb across the back of his hand. You need to stay. She needs you here. But, Iranzi tried to speak, torn between wanting to go wherever she went and knowing his place was beside his mother. No buts, my love, Irelia smiled, a tender firmness in her voice. You're a man now. A son. A protector. And I am proud of you. Without giving him time to argue, she had already made arrangements. She handed him a hotel reservation card with a gentle chuckle. I couldn't leave you to sleep on those hospital benches like a homeless prince. I got you a room at the finest hotel in town, Imperial Glory Suites. Royalty must rest royally, after all. Iranzi's mouth parted in awe. That hotel was a 5-star paradise that even the town's richest barely dared to dream about stepping into. Before he could recover from that shock, she pressed a slim envelope into his palm. When he opened it, it was a brand new ATM card, freshly minted in his name, attached to a sleek note. 5 million Nigerian nairas loaded. For exigencies, emergencies, and a little fun. You deserve it. Irelia. He looked up, speechless. His eyes glassed over with emotions he couldn't name. But Irelia wasn't done. She turned to his siblings, who had gathered around again in awe. One by one, like a benevolent queen bestowing blessings, she gifted each of them envelopes heavy with cash, enough to change their lives overnight. To the eldest sister struggling to run a small shop, to the younger brother studying engineering, even to the little one still in secondary school dreaming of university, none was left out. "You are Iranzi's blood," she said warmly. "Therefore, you are now mine too." The siblings cried openly, blessing her in every dialect they could find, calling down the heavens in gratitude. Then, turning back to Iranzi, she playfully wagged a finger at him. "One last thing before I go," she said, her eyes narrowing mischievously. "Beware of lady wolves and husband snatchers. They love fine boys with fresh millions and broken hearts." They both laughed, a laughter so pure, so raw, so full of unexpected joy that even the hospital staff around them paused to smile. He hugged her tightly, breathing her in, reluctant to let go. And then, with a final kiss on his forehead, she slipped into her black luxury car, her convoy gliding away like royalty under the afternoon sun. Iranzi stood there long after the dust had settled, the ATM card still in one hand, the hotel card in the other, feeling as if he had just stepped into another universe. That evening, as the sun dipped low behind the hills, Iranzi arrived at Imperial Glory Suites. The grandeur of the place almost knocked the air from his lungs. Chandeliers dripped from the ceilings like frozen waterfalls. Red carpets rolled at his feet like the path of kings. Staff bowed at him with reverence, calling him Sir, a title he was still trying to wear comfortably. He was shown to the presidential luxury suite, the kind of room only billionaires or foreign dignitaries would dare to book. A room bigger than his entire childhood home. Standing at the center of it all, the massive bed, the golden-framed mirrors, the private jacuzzi, the stocked bar, Iranzi twirled slowly, overwhelmed. He touched the sheets, ran his fingers along the walls, opened the tall windows to see the city lights blinking back at him like a million winking stars. Tears welled up again in his eyes, but not from sadness this time. From gratitude. From wonder. He dropped to his knees in the center of that opulent room, lifted his face to the heavens, and whispered, "God, is this for real? Am I dreaming? Is this what it feels like to be loved? Unconditionally?" At that moment, his phone buzzed again. It was a text. From Irelia. "Good night, my stubborn king. Sleep in glory tonight. You deserve it. Dream of me." He clutched the phone to his chest, smiling through his tears, knowing deep within that his life would never be the same again. Iranzi sat heavily on the grand leather couch in the presidential suite, still soaking in the unimaginable luxury, when his phone buzzed again. He glanced at it casually at first. But the moment he saw the name flashing on the screen, Limani, his heart slammed hard against his ribs. He hesitated. His mind raced wild, remembering Irelia's playful yet deeply serious warning. "Beware of lady wolves and husband snatchers." His hand trembled slightly as he answered. Before he could speak, her voice, honeyed yet haunting, whispered urgently, "I'm at your door. Open up, my love." For a moment, Iranzi froze. The luxury around him blurred into meaningless glitter. His past, the hurt, the betrayal, came rushing back like a cruel storm threatening to drown his soul. No. Not again. Never again. Quickly, Iranzi called the private hotel line. His voice was firm but urgent. "Security, please. There's an unwanted visitor at my door. Please come quickly." Within seconds, 2 sharply dressed hotel staff and a security officer hurried up to the presidential floor. They found Limani standing there, dressed provocatively, wearing the same perfume he once loved, her face made up with desperate hope. The head staff turned to Iranzi with a formal bow. "Sir, she claims she's your girlfriend. That you invited her." Iranzi's heart boiled inside his chest. Shame, anger, sadness, all fought for dominance in his soul. He hesitated for a painful moment, then nodded reluctantly. "Open the door. Let me identify her." As soon as he cracked the door, Limani lunged forward with wild desperation, pushing past the staff like a thief stealing back lost treasure. She staggered into the glittering room, her eyes wide with both wonder and concealed greed. The staff tried to restrain her, but Iranzi, sensing the danger of a growing public scene, lifted a hand. "It's okay," he said coldly. "Let her be. She is an old acquaintance." They exchanged worried glances but obeyed him, bowing slightly before withdrawing, leaving the door discreetly ajar just in case. Inside the room, an unbearable silence fell between them. The grand chandelier above them buzzed faintly, casting an uneasy shimmer over the room. Finally, Iranzi pointed stiffly to the couch opposite him. His voice was cold, drained of any fondness. "Sit." Limani obeyed, perching herself carefully like a guilty peacock trying to regain lost dignity. There was a long, icy pause. Iranzi's voice finally cut through the silence, sharp and flat. "What is your mission, Limani? Why are you here?" If you want to know what transpired between Limani AMD Iranzi in that hotel room and Irelia's reaction, please subscribe, like, and comment for part 2.